All right. Good morning, YouTube. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, wherever you're watching this, whenever you're watching this. My name is Rosh, and today we're going to go over some AxeFX tutorial basics. So a little about me. I'm a guitar player out here in the Los Angeles area. I also build and program fractal rigs for a lot of well-known clients. So some of my clients include Steve Vai, Melissa Etheridge, Perfect Circle, Dweezil Zappa, the list goes on. So I wanted to, since we find ourselves in quarantine right now, I wanted to give back to the fractal community and show some of my approaches on building some presets. We're going to start with real simple basics and then maybe move on to some advanced stuff as long as I keep uploading some videos. So these are going to be, short and subject-based, and if you have any questions, by all means, feel free to reach out to me, send me a message, and I would be more than happy to build a tutorial just for you. So let's start with the basics. Here we have a blank grid. So if you are using any of the factory presets or you just want to clear out the preset, you want to go up to here, preset, clear preset. So first basics is this is the grid. This is how you structure your signal flow. What you're going to do first when you're building a preset, assuming that you already have your AxeFX III plugged into either studio monitors or a full range speaker or to a guitar amp and cabinet, you're already getting sound out of the factory presets. Let's just start with the basics, some of my approaches. So the first thing I always do is I build the input 1 to the output 1. And what I'm doing is I'm just right-clicking anywhere on the grid. You can, of course, go up to block. And then you can also do quick build, which allows you to drag and drop any of these blocks onto the grid. So the next step is, of course, you want to add an amp and a cab block. My recommendation always is that you want to reset these blocks, right? So you reset the channel that you're on, as well as this one, because sometimes it has some residual from whatever preset this used to be. And then find this little O and connect it to the end, and then you'll connect the shunt, and you should get some sound. So right now I have a Les Paul plugged into the fractal, and we got a real basic sound right here. So defaulted to the USA Clean. So the two main types of amps that you're going to find in the fractal, now there is a master volume amp that has a master volume and a non-master volume amp. So for example, if we take one of these, let's say a Vox or something, or let's do a Vox. So class A, as you notice, the master volume is left, and then you have this thing called the input drive, and it functions just like the real world counterpart. If there's, it'll either say volume on the real amp or anything, and as you increase the volume of this, you'll also get more distortion, but you'll also get actual more volume. So as you see, if I decrease the drive, the amp cleans up. I'm not rolling back anything on my volume on my guitar. Okay, so this is like an amp without a master volume. So if you want to get more distortion, as they say, just crank it up. So let's go back to the USA Clean, because this is probably the easiest to kind of visualize and understand what's going on. So this is the USA Clean, and increasing the drive on certain amps sometimes gets them to distort a little bit. Sometimes it doesn't. For example, the USA Clean doesn't really distort that much. As you turn up the drive, and if you turn it down, you hear a level drop in volume. But it's other amps that have like a master volume in them, like let's say the Brit 800. As you increase the drive, or decrease the drive, cleans it up. And then of course, increasing the drive, as you would expect, adds more distortion. Okay, but the real key to remember is also the master volume can also increase a little bit of distortion. So if we do this and turn that up, as you notice, the amp starts to grind a little bit more. So you're making the virtual power tubes grind a little harder, work a little harder, and you get a little bit more distortion. So with an amp with a master volume and an input drive, sometimes the balance between these two can help lead to the guitar tone that you're looking for. If you need more gain, definitely work on getting this up and down to the gain level that you need. But if you still need a little bit more, you just want to affect the shape of the gain, you want to use this. Now, the most important thing to understand is when you're building a preset, the cab block really influences how your preset's going to sound. So if we take this JCM 800 and just put everything kind of to default. So again, we'll go block, reset channel, and then these are the default settings. The proper cab block is going to affect what sound it is. So right now it is using this cabinet, the 1x4 PIG 57. That means there is a Shure 57 on a 1x4 speaker. That's why it's going to be really crunchy. But if we pick different size speakers from all these factory ones, then you're gonna affect the tone a little bit. So let's go to something like a 412. So up here in the search bar, I usually also pick based on the type of cabinet. So here's all the 412 cabinets. I'll just pick one at random. Let's do that one. Instantly changes the character of the sound. So for example, this is the original cabinet that was in there. Let's try this one. And you can hear there's a huge difference. So let's talk about just kind of general practical settings that I always tend to use. So what I'll do is I'll always go to the cab right here in the preamp section. And what I always like to do is adjust the low and the high cut. So for example, the low cut by default goes to 20 hertz. I usually like to go somewhere between 80 and 100. What this does is it kind of cleans up the low end. Most of the time, engineers, front of house, and mixing engineers are always going to do a low cut for the guitar anyway. You don't need to be lower than 80 hertz unless you're playing down-tuned music. You're going to be getting in the way of the bass and the kick drum, so you want to clean up the low end down there. So for example, here is the default settings. And then here is 80. Instantly, like, just cleans up that muddiness down there. And sometimes I'll even go up to 100. Or even 120. It just kind of depends on the guitar tone that I'm going for. Now the high cut is the same thing, but in reverse, it cleans up some of that really, really bitey top end. So I'll usually actually bring this down to about maybe 8,000 or 8,500 depending. So I'll start at 8,500. And just kind of find the right thing. Again, your guitar tone is going to be really dependent on what kind of sound you're going for. So right there sounds pretty good to me for a nice, just general, generic rock tone. And here we have the default settings. And last but not least, you want to add a reverb. So let's go over some of the basics of the reverb. One of the ways the mix laws work is that you can run the reverb either in parallel or in series. So if you're going to run it in series like this, one thing you need to do is increase the level to 3 dB right here, and you want to increase the mix to 50%. Now, what this does is if you, for example, leave it here and then leave the gain up and do the and then use the mix to adjust your reverb sound. Let's maybe move it up to about here. So what happens is if you bypass this block, then you're going to get a drop in volume. So you hear that? Where there's an actual like level difference between the reverb bypassed and the reverb engaged. It's like the tone got louder. So instead, what you should do is put this here at 3, leave the mix at 30%, and then actually use the input gain to add in how much reverb you want. So here is the reverb. And we'll just kind of crank this up. To the point where we need it. Maybe right here. And then maybe add a little bit of that. So now what happens is if you bypass the reverb, you're not going to get any weird level drop. Obviously, what you're hearing is kind of the stereo spread of the reverb, but you're not going to get an actual drop in level when you bypass it. As opposed to using 0 and then using 100% gain and then using the mix to adjust. See, it gets really difficult to adjust the level. So use 3 dB, 50% mix, and then use the input gain to add how much reverb you want or how little. So this is a really quick tutorial on just how to build a basic preset. I'm going to start uploading more of these to YouTube, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Hope that helps.